Well, good morning, YouTube. It is early here. Trying to beat that sun before it comes up, making recording very difficult on the old cell phone. So let's talk pond, right? It is the middle of June of 2024. I hear pigs in the distance, some guy chainsawing in the distance, but most of the world is still asleep. I like it that way. So, June of 2024, this 2024 season, we've been going at the pond a little bit different. We've been working with Natural Waterscapes a little bit, and they did do a pond test for us, and that told us a lot about the water chemistry of the pond. We noticed that we had high phosphate levels and a few other things that needed tweaking. And so they provided that test. They ended up providing a algae control kit that actually killed back a lot of the algae. We do still have a little bit of algae coming back as these water temperatures rise, but I'm not concerned at this spot. I did go ahead and buy their pond maintenance kits. I think they call it the Clean Pond Maintenance Kit. And so I purchased the half-acre size just because of the quantities of it. So we're gonna just kind of go through that, go through my process, and I'll tell you, spoiler alert, I'm pretty impressed so far at this spot of the summer. We'll see later in the summer, but at this spot, I'm pretty impressed. So let me go through this process. I came down last night. This is a Saturday morning. I came down last night and I put in about a half a quart of pond dye. I'm using the Midnight Blue, which is a darker blue. And my maintenance plan that Natural Waterscapes made for me says to put in 16 ounces every 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure if that's enough. Sometimes I feel like the edges of the water are not quite dark enough. Maybe I need to bump that up to 24 ounces. I think that's a game, right? We've had consistent rain so far. Now we're starting to see the water levels dropping, which means less water, but more heat, right? So I am using that Midnight Blue, and when you buy this kit, basically you can decide what colors you want. You could decide if you want to throw in the packets, which is nice. I had a little dye on my hand last night, or you can get in the quarts. The quarts, since they're liquid, they seem to mix up better from my reading. Those packets, unless you have a lot of wave activity, they don't do as good a job. Flies going around. At any rate, I did that last night just because I want to make sure it mixes up real thoroughly. The kids will be in this pond later today. The next thing I did was I am using a phosphate eliminator. Now, early in the season, I did buy 3 gallons of what's called Metaflock, and it's a liquid phosphate binder. And I sprayed that all in the pond. It mixes with the water, grabs a hold of that phosphate, and then sinks it to the bottom of the pond. We've got a lot of fertility here. I've got the garden just up the way there. I've got chickens. This is old pond bottom, so there is lots of nutrients. And so if I want to keep those algae from growing, if I want to keep the water clear, I've got to consume that phosphate somehow. I've eliminated all the cattails. I've eliminated a lot of that vegetation that would consume it. And so this is the other option. Maybe down the road, I'll have a floating garden or one of those bogs that people pump water up to for filtering. That's stirring in my mind. But at this spot, using that phosphate eliminator is the best move. So like I said, I sprayed that Metaflock earlier. Man, it did wonders. So now I am on my 3rd cycle of treatments in the pond. Every 2 weeks we do these treatments. And so I take 4 scoops of this phosphate eliminator. It's really finely ground, like pellets. It's still pellets, but it's pretty finely ground. I just put an old cat litter bucket, 5-gallon bucket, whatever you have. Add some water, I mix it up, and during that mixing up, it will foam up a little bit. I usually get that mixed up and then I go on and do the other things. I am putting in 4 scoops of muck reducer. Basically, it's these little tablets that when they get wet, they just release all these bacterias. Now this information's on their website. You could call their technician and talk to them. I've been real impressed with feeling welcome to call those technicians and ask them questions. And they don't seem to be annoyed with me yet. Maybe later, right? Got lots of questions, but a lot of detail on the website. That's helpful, really helpful. So anyhow, you throw these muck tablets in, and really what I do in the barn is I keep things on a shelf. So I take those 4 scoops of muck reducer tablets, I put them in a little half bin that I have, and then I'm using a pond clarifier, pond cleanse, I believe they call it, and it's these packets. And I just throw the 4 of those into that so I can carry everything out at one time. The first time I did this chore, I carried everything out in a wheelbarrow and I looked pretty silly. This is a little bit better. So anyhow, after I added that water to the phosphate eliminator, stirred it up, I just kind of let it dissolve and I went on and did other things. Come down to the pond, I took those 4 packs of pond cleanse and I just chuck them in the pond. There's not much precision with this. I try to hit somewhere in front of the beach area. Let me see if I can aim you that way. Somewhere in front of the beach area, down at that far end. I just chuck one all the way across the pond towards the diving tower, and then I get down in this general area. Like I said, they will float, and then once that little dissolving packet, it releases out. I try to make sure it's in a deep enough area that that dissolve will mix in well with the water. I get done with that. I start working the shoreline with those little muck tablets, throwing out 3, 4, 5 of them at a time and just working my way around. Knowing that my water level will continue to drop, so I want to make sure that those are in that muck area, right? I don't want to throw them way out. Way out is not muck, it's just clay. So I want to make sure they're along that muck layer where all those lily pads and all those cattails were for years, right? And that's pretty simple. I need to get a little bit better at my my rationing as I'm going around, because I ended up with throwing out all the tablets and I was probably 20 feet short still. So I will get better with that. And then I go and get that phosphate eliminator, give it a little stir again, and I just start to toss a little bit in, trying to hit about 5 or 6 spots. You know, it doesn't really become a whole lot. What I'll notice is I did not get it all dissolved. So I put a little pond water back in it, sloshed it around. I actually went in there and kind of broke it loose from the bottom a little bit and dumped the rest of that in there. It is the middle of June. It is June 15th when I'm recording this. We are calling for super hot days the next week, and I think that'll be the real test of the pond. Pond temperatures are rising. Sunlight is pretty well at a max right now, and at this spot my pond has not looked this well. Do I have algae? I do have some algae. I still have some of that algae control kit. I will wait a while and maybe do very small spot treatments of that, but at this spot I'm not too concerned with it. The kids are in the pond every single day, really stirring things up. I try to make sure that they're focused on just entering and exiting through that beach area. I'm not sure if the other areas, if phosphate gets bound, I don't want that to get broke back loose, right? I did come along and cut back a lot of vegetation, but there's still more vegetation. Anywhere where there is not a lot of depth of water, vegetation will grow. I know keeping that dye on there will help a lot, but that's a pretty big task for me. And I'm actually considering getting some bids, and really getting bids doesn't cost any money usually. And getting bids and getting that shoreline excavated back so I just have less of this vegetation issue. I think I need to really get some of that nose digging ponds and not just some guy with a backhoe, including myself, right? And so I think that would be helpful, but at what price tag is it helpful, right? So this is the pond update. I received a couple emails over the last week or so saying, hey, how's that pond going? I still get comments on pond videos from 5 years ago, giving me suggestions. I do appreciate those. They kind of timed out, but I do appreciate those. But this is the most current version of the pond, and you will see that pond's looking good for this time of year. In years past, we get to about this spot and it'd get that oily film over it, especially on those hot days. We'd get some rain and it would go away for a little bit. Shade, it'd go away for a little bit. But I think what I was using was not a bad thing. I was just using bacteria and using dye, and I don't think those were bad, but I don't think they really treated my issue. So these things seem to be treating the issue better. Like I said, another week, we'll see, right? Week of 90 degrees changes everything's attitude and everybody's attitude. So I'm looking at the counter thinking, man, this is getting pretty lengthy, and I apologize. Lengthy videos takes a commitment to watch a lengthy video. It really does. But I've got a slew of pond videos, and really I'm not an expert at anything. That's why I am actually communicating with a company that specializes in pond and water, because me and Uncle Google just couldn't figure things out. And so I'm thinking that this is now, with all that being said, I'm actually considering doing an additional test later in the summer just to see, are those numbers different? And then, you know, does that test need to be done by that company again, by Natural Waterscapes again? Does it need to be done by me? Is there a home test? I don't know. I don't know, but this is apparently pretty serious hobby if you guys get into ponds. So anyhow, I'm going to go find some breakfast and make sure kids are awake. And yeah, I think we're going to go swimming later today. So there you go. I'm Joe. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you watching these videos and sharing them and going to the Amazon affiliate page and doing all that stuff. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you have a good day. Bye now.